I worked the night shift at a small overnight cargo dispatch hub. This place wasn't very busy. Most trucks would come during the day. My job was to log entries, issue gate passes to drivers, and monitor the cameras. But that night, something felt different. The entire yard was empty, only the reflection of headlights and the distant sound of the highway. I had no idea the next few hours were going to be the longest hours of my life. Around 10:50 p.m., a man arrived. Front gate buzzer rang. I checked the camera and let him in. He was a medium-aged man, dark jacket, cap, and an old duffel bag. His behavior seemed normal, but his eyes looked a little empty. He came to the reception counter and said he needed to collect documents related to a night shipment. I found it a bit unusual because we were not expecting any extra contractor that night, but last-minute arrivals are common in warehouses. I did not pay too much attention and issued him a temporary visitor pass. He took the pass, gave a slight nod, and walked straight toward the yard offices. I went back to monitoring the CCTV screens. Honestly, at that time, nothing felt unusual. But about 20 minutes later, when I checked the entry logs again, something felt off. I refreshed the system twice, then a third time. His name was not in any work order, not in the visitor schedule, not in the shipment list. Seeing that my hands and feet went completely cold, I tried to convince myself it was just a clerical error. Warehouse systems sometimes have mistakes, but for some reason my mind refused to accept that logic. I immediately rewound the CCTV footage. The man was visible in the yard. He was not there for any shipment or work. He was just walking around. He was not heading toward any office or shipment area. He would stop near containers, look toward corners. 2 or 3 times he even looked directly at the camera, and that made me feel genuinely uncomfortable. His walking style did not look like a normal worker. The most disturbing thing was that he never once used his phone or talked to anyone. He was just wandering around the yard for no reason. At exactly 12:07 a.m., he suddenly disappeared from the camera frame. I replayed the footage multiple times, but there was no clear exit. No gate opened, no alarm triggered. I immediately called the security guard. His answer gave me chills. "No one has left the gate. I've been standing here the whole time." I checked the exit logs again. Everything was blank. At that moment, I realized he was still inside the warehouse property, but the cameras were not picking him up anymore. For about 10 minutes, everything was silent. Then I saw him again, this time near the loading bay, completely still, just staring into the dark warehouse section like he was waiting for something. Whenever a forklift or moving light came close to him, he would immediately change position. It felt like he exactly knew where the cameras and blind spots were. By 2:30 a.m., he kept appearing in different parts of the yard, sometimes near fuel station, sometimes behind storage containers, sometimes near back offices. But he never spoke to anyone, and he was not doing any actual work. At around 3 a.m., a scheduled delivery truck arrived. I opened the gate. At the same moment, I saw him walking beside the truck on the CCTV screen. I thought the driver would notice him, but there was no reaction at all. But when I looked out of the office window toward the loading bay, there was no one there. Only the parked truck and the surrounding darkness. I kept looking between the screen and outside. Every time it was the same. On CCTV, he was near the truck, but in reality, the loading bay was empty. That was the first time I truly felt fear. A few minutes later, he disappeared again. There was no movement in the yard, nothing on the office side either. I called my supervisor. He only said, "Just keep an eye on him. Stay calm." At around 3:40 a.m., when we physically checked the storage area, the man was standing behind some containers, completely silent. When asked for ID, he gave one name. Then after a few seconds, he changed it. When questioned further, he could not give any clear answers. Later checking revealed he had multiple fake IDs and a stolen access card. My supervisor simply said to end it there and continue normal routine. But the strangest thing was that there was no trace of him in any official records. Not in the company database, not in the visitor system. But I saw him with my own eyes walk through that gate that night. And honestly, that is something that still disturbs me to this day. Can I give you a piece of advice? If a place stays open 24 hours a day, don't assume it's safe to spend the night there. I learned that the hard way, the night a man walked into my laundromat carrying a black trash bag. It was around 1:30 at night. At the time, I worked the night shift at a 24-hour laundromat. It was a small place. Half the machines barely worked, the fluorescent lights constantly flickered, and the whole place always smelled weirdly like detergent. Strange people showing up late at night was pretty normal in that area. Some people would sit inside without even doing laundry. Others would spend an hour or two just scrolling on their phones. And there was this old man who came in every Friday at exactly 3 a.m., washed the same shirt every time, then left without even folding it. On night shifts, you honestly learn not to ask too many questions. That night, it was raining outside. The street was completely empty. I was sitting behind the counter scrolling through my phone when the entrance bell rang. A man walked in, dark hoodie, baseball cap, black trash bag in his hand. At first, he looked like a normal customer. He walked straight to the washing machine in the far corner and just stood there. Didn't turn the machine on, didn't put the bag down, just kept looking around. That's when I started feeling weird about him, because his clothes were completely soaked, even though it wasn't raining that hard outside anymore. I casually asked, "Need to wash something, man?" He didn't even look at me. In this quiet, flat voice, he just asked, "Is machine 12 free?" I said yeah, and he walked straight over to it. That's when I noticed something else strange. The shape of the black trash bag didn't look normal. It didn't look like it was filled with clothes. He leaned over the machine like he was doing something, but the machine never actually started. Then he just stood there again. I kept glancing over at him. I don't know why, but something about him felt off. Then suddenly he stood up and walked toward the restroom, leaving the bag behind. The second he disappeared into the hallway, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped out from behind the counter and slowly walked over to machine 12. The bag was slightly open. I stopped. There weren't any clothes inside. There were phones, a lot of them. Some old, some new, some completely smashed. A few of them even had tape wrapped around them. I just froze there for a second. Then I looked deeper into the bag and saw wallets, credit cards, all mixed together like someone had thrown everything in there as fast as possible. For a second, my mind just went blank. One of the phones was still on. There was a family photo on the screen. At that point, I still didn't fully understand what I was looking at, but I knew it wasn't normal. Then I heard the toilet flush. My whole body instantly tensed up. I walked straight back to the counter like I hadn't seen anything. The man came out of the restroom and looked directly at me. For the first time, he made proper eye contact. His eyes were strangely focused, like he was trying to read my reaction. He slowly walked up to the counter. Then he asked, "You didn't touch anything, did you?" I said, "No." He stared at me for about 2 seconds, completely silent. Then he smiled a little, but it wasn't a normal smile. It looked more like he was deciding whether or not he believed me. Then he pulled some quarters out of his pocket and placed them on the counter. Change for machine 12. I bent down to grab the coins when suddenly red and blue lights flashed outside the window. A police car pulled up right in front of the laundromat. Maybe it was just a routine patrol. Maybe they were stopping nearby for coffee. But the second the guy in the hoodie saw the police car, he completely panicked. He ran straight for the back door, but the old metal handle snapped right off in his hand. The door wouldn't open. By then, the police were already coming inside. Later, they didn't tell me many details, but I did hear that the black bag contained more than just phones and wallets. There was also a loaded pistol inside.
and a handwritten list of different 24-hour places around the city. My laundromat was on that list too. I didn't stay at that job much longer after that. And overnight shifts? I never worked an overnight shift again.
It was around 2 a.m. I was working the night shift at a distribution warehouse where we prepare stock for nearby grocery stores. Normally, there were 2 or 3 workers at night, but that night most people left early and the warehouse was almost empty. I was scanning pallets of canned products when I suddenly heard a box fall from the next rack. At first I thought, maybe a forklift driver was still in the loading bay, or maybe someone was still working in the back section. But the strange thing was, I didn't even hear the loading gate open. I walked over to the corner of the racks, and there was a man standing there. He was wearing a yellow safety vest, but not our warehouse uniform, and he was just staring straight at me. I said, "Can I help you?" After a few seconds, he said, "Where's the restroom?" His voice was calm, but his face had no expression at all. I pointed him toward the rear hallway where the employee restroom was. He just nodded and slowly walked between the racks. I went back to my work, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. There was something about that guy that just didn't feel right. Not aggressive, just off. I started rushing my scanning so I could head toward the front office. But a few minutes later, I heard footsteps again. I turned around. That same guy was standing behind me, and this time he was closer. "I think you're new here," he said. "No, I've been here almost a year," I replied. He gave a small smile. Then he asked, "Are you the only one here at night?" I immediately felt uneasy. I said, "No, there are others too." I didn't want him to know I was alone. He looked around the warehouse and said, "I don't see anyone else." I didn't say anything and just walked away with my pallet jack. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps again. He was following me. Now my heartbeat was getting fast. "Sir, restroom is that way," I said without turning back. No reply. I quickly went into the storage room and locked the door. I just stood there listening. The footsteps stopped outside. Then, silence. Complete silence. I thought maybe he had left. After about 5 minutes, I came back out. Everything looked normal again. I went to the front office and thought about checking the cameras, but honestly, I felt like maybe I was just overreacting. A little later, I went toward the restroom. The employee restroom was in the rear hallway near the loading docks. I crossed the hallway and went inside. I was in the stall when I heard the outer door open. Right at that moment, I felt this weird feeling in my stomach. I quickly pulled my boots back so they wouldn't be visible under the stall. For a few seconds, I could hear footsteps. Then they stopped. I wasn't moving at all. And then, I saw an eye through the crack in the stall door. It was looking straight at me. I panicked and pushed the stall door open and ran out. The man stepped back and almost slipped. When he came into the light, I realized it was the same guy I had met earlier on the warehouse floor. I ran straight to the front office and called my supervisor. By the time the police arrived, he was already gone. They searched the entire warehouse, but there was no trace of him. No truck entry was recorded. No one had used the rear gate. The next day, my supervisor told me he only showed up once on the cameras, in the rear hallway feed. And the strange thing was, in the footage, he was already standing outside the restroom, before I even went inside.